Hey everybody, I'm Radioactive, and today we're going to be testing out FPS testing a new prototype Radson XL barrel. You can see that it is pretty silly. Of course, silly shells. Let's see, do they have a silly butts? You can see a little SB right there. Yes, this is a silly shell, break action silly shell Radson XL. We will go ahead and start with MXL. Just going to do one shot for each shell. 63. That's pretty decent. Typically, that's actually fairly high, considering what I've gotten previously. So depending on the fit, it's typically like 48 to about 65. Or, yeah, 65. It ends up coming out to about 55 FPS average, which is about 15 to 20 FPS down. And that was only after I bored out the backs of these shells to half an inch. They are 12 millimeter normally. Let's see. Next, we'll do 3 Elite, but it's going to be 6 half darts. Now, 51, that's about typical. Which that is, once again, about 20 to 25 FPS down on what a normal barrel Radson XL does, but you do have to lose some performance somewhere with so many, I guess you call them gimmicks in play. Hammer action, break barrel, hammer action, break barrel, pistol. There's just too many. Super large plunger tube, super wide diameter, trying to neck down to 12 millimeter diameter. Sorry if you can hear me sniffling. I have been fighting off an illness these last couple weeks. We're gonna go single mega now, regular mega. 60 FPS. So that immediately is the first 3 ammo types that the Radson XL, like the first 3 that the Radson XL fired, like from the very start. Let's do a whirlwind mega. Interesting. So immediately you can see there is a pretty substantial performance decrease. MXL of a normal Radson XL typically does 70, 75 FPS-ish. MXL with the out of the silly shells are about 55. The 6 Elite, that is pretty much a high of 55. It's typically 50 to 55 FPS from these silly shells. With the 6x3 half dart Radson XL barrel, the first set of shots does 70 FPS, 65 to 70 FPS. Second does 70 to 75, and the final set does 75 to 80 FPS. I guess we'll then try Ultra. Now, you can see that this Ultra Dart is about halfway stuck out, or the head is stuck out. Normally, you wouldn't have to do that, but as I'm about to show you, it doesn't actually matter that much. Oh, it actually fired. It didn't fire before. Hold on. Let me put it all the way in. Yeah, that didn't fire at all. So, let's see. Yeah. Um, yeah. Fully seated, the darts do not move. Or the single ultra dart does not move. And that's pretty underwhelming, if I remember correctly. They typically get like 80 FPS from 4 ultra darts. With the other barrel I have, now let's do N1. 83. Now that is 3 darts. That's about the same performance that the 5x2 gets. The 5x2 N1 dart. Radson XL gets with 2 extra darts. Let's see. What else do I got over here? So, this green one, you can see, is the stock silly shell. Completely unmodified. It's what you will get. Didn't fire. Does not fire 3 rival at all. Doesn't even try. Well, let's try a single rival. .95 FPS. And then let's try double rival. Didn't fire. So, I also have a modified, it's my own design of like the barrel. Gonna go 3 rival. Didn't fire, but it almost did. It actually moved. And then we're gonna go double rival. It fires, not well, but it fires. And then we're gonna go single rival. So I have noticed that these silly shells actually have extremely tight barrels for some reason. Like that rival was a millimeter tighter than anything that I would use, but that I would design the barrel for. Now, that does work better for getting more performance out of more powerful blasters. So it builds up pressure behind it, and then once that it breaks, like the friction breaks and starts moving, there's a lot more pressure built up behind it to make use of the short barrel here. But for these it is high volume, but it's low pressure applications, that does hurt performance. What else do I have over here? I have a for Boomco shell. .50 FPS, that's not bad. I don't have anything to test that against, but I do have an 8-barrel Radson XL, barrel designed. I doubt I will ever get to actually printing that. It's so niche. I just don't really see how it would ever be, or why it would ever be used. And last but not least, and because I am I guess you could say, because I'm old school and kind of lazy, I just shoved a 5/8 aluminum barrel into an ultra shell to make a sniper shell. I know there's sniper shells that exist. Oh, and here the dog's cool. Now with Dart Zone rubies, Oh, that's actually quite a bit higher than what it was previously. 120 FPS single shot half dart, which is about 100 FPS down from what the kinetic energy of the best Radson XL barrel says it should get. So 6 half darts at, what was it, 80 FPS should get about 220 FPS. So it's the same kinetic energy as a 220 FPS half dart. So yes, that is all of the barrels that all the shells that I've printed out. I am going to be printing off a couple more barrel design to try and squeeze more performance out. Better funnel, you know the whole deal. But there's just only so much that you can do. It's a 54, it's like actually 53.975 millimeter, I think, but I'm just going to go with 54 millimeter. It's 54 millimeter inner diameter plunger tube to a standard 12 millimeter port into the back of the shell. There's only so much you can do with that. I have actually you know what? I'm going to put in the sniper shell, and I'm going to dry fire this blaster so y'all can hear it. I mean, it's loud. And because I'm so confident in the blaster itself, I'm just going to fully dry fire it. You can hear how much louder the pure dry fire is, even though it's still... You know what? I'm going to get another blaster. You stay right here. I'm going to get a better blaster with a better transfer point. All right. Now here is what an MXL specific barrel Radson XL sounds like dry fired. It is a lot deeper, a lot faster tone. It is not trying to push out 90 cc of air, or 91.37, I think, cc of air from a 54 millimeter plunger tube into 12 millimeters. I can't do the math right now. Let's see. So 12 times 4, that'd be 48. So 4.5. So it's a 4.5 to 1 ratio. Right? So it's 4.5 diameters of the plunger. So it's the transfer port, that diameter, times 4.5, right? And I think that goes up exponentially, the area does? I can't remember. I don't work with area, I work with volume. Which I guess you kind of knew the area, but regardless. It's massive. You're trying to put so much air with such a small spring, and it's a 2.75 inch K25. I really wish it performed better. And honestly, I think it would perform the exact same. Well, maybe not some of these. But I feel like it would perform very similar if I had 2 shells, right? You might see a little bit of performance loss, but it would be so much more kinetic energy because there's just so much more. You're doubling the output, the possible output. Heck, if I could fit 3 shells in there, it would fire, hopefully, it would fire the triple mega at like 50 FPS, which is 10, 15 FPS lower than what the normal one does, but it's still 3, right? It's still 3. It's really disappointing to me that the performance is so much lower. What do y'all think? What do y'all think about these performance numbers? How do y'all feel about a one-hand Hammer Prime blaster using shells with, and there's nothing else like it, and that there is that. Everything else requires two hands, and really you're going to use a second hand to load this anyway, so. The only thing similar is a Sludge Fire, and it's twice the size of this. But I think the Sludge Fire would perform better, honestly. It's got about 70 cc, 60, 70 cc. I'll have to redo that, but it's like 765-ish. It fires MXL darts from a Sobek, which has a similar sized transfer port, inlet port into the back of the shell, about 70 FPS. With a 14 kilogram spring, the draw is quite a bit longer on the Sludge Fire, so it has more potential energy, and the diameter of the plunger tube is smaller, so it has more pressure, which overcomes the friction better. I'm just not sure how you would do anything better. So there is a blaster called the Grayson. It is based off of the original Samson with basically a wild style front on it. And I've been trying to get the creator to get me FPS numbers for it so I can just compare. That might be hitting the same FPS numbers just because it has a smaller tube. And which gives it more pressure. It does have less draw by about 6 or 7 millimeters, depending on some factors. I'm just not sure. Is it worth continuing down this line with this blaster, even though the performance is so low, even compared to itself? Just without the break action gimmick? I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. You tell me. Well, I'm radioactive, and I hope you have a good day.